Though the U.S. and Iran cite progress in their negotiations, the U.S. military buildup in the Middle East tells a different story.
The president does have many options here, and the more he brings military assets to the theater, the more flexibility and options he can actually find.
Are the two countries on the brink of war?
I'm Georgia Howe with Daily Wire Executive Editor John Bickley. It's Thursday, February 19th, and this is Morning Wire.
A new Daily Wire investigation reveals that Washington state spent millions on gender transition procedures for prisoners.
And the FDA reverses on the Moderna flu vaccine, while RFK ratchets up his assault on processed foods.
We're seeing in our population people who are obscenely obese and at the same time malnourished.
Thanks for waking up with Morning Wire. Stay tuned. We have the news you need to know.
Nothing beats cooking at home, and with our sponsor, HelloFresh, you can do it more often this year. Easy recipes that taste great and make you feel good because bringing everyone together on a busy weeknight doesn't have to be complicated. With HelloFresh, you can choose from over 100 recipes every week, everything from cuisines around the world to comfort meals that help you beat those winter blues. And if you're looking for something a bit healthier, there are more than 35 high-protein recipes each week, including new Mediterranean and GLP-1 friendly options. These are truly some top-notch recipes. I've tried everything myself, from Hawaiian pizza to the fancier side steak dinners, and it's all super easy, super convenient, and super tasty. Plus, there's now 3 times the seafood with no upcharge, so you can treat yourself or impress guests without breaking the bank. Because when dinner tastes this good, nothing hits quite like home cooking. Head over to HelloFresh.com/MorningWire10FM to get 10 free meals and a free Zwilling knife, a $145 value on your third box. Offer valid while supplies last. Free meals applied as a discount on the first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan.
As tensions escalate over Iran's pursuit of nuclear weapons and the murder of thousands of protesters, the Trump administration is gearing up for war.
Daily Wire senior editor Cabot Phillips has the latest. So, Cabot, a lot of moving parts to this story, but can you catch us up to speed on the latest?
Yeah, bottom line, the war drums are beating and military action against Iran appears increasingly likely. So let's give some context to start. For the last year, the Trump administration has been pushing Iran on 3 main fronts. First, they want Iran to cut off their support of terror groups like the Houthis and Hamas, but that has not happened, so call that strike 1. Second, Trump has demanded that the supreme leader stop targeting protesters, warning that he was, quote, locked and loaded and ready to go if they continued to kill anti-regime demonstrators. But despite those warnings, as we've talked about on the show, thousands, potentially tens of thousands of Iranian citizens have been slaughtered amid those unprecedented protests nationwide. So we'll call that strike 2. And finally, and most importantly, the U.S. has demanded that the Ayatollah give up his pursuit of nuclear weapons, offering sanctions relief in exchange for them doing away with their nuclear program. Now, the two sides have held multiple rounds of talks on the topic, but those have failed to bear much fruit. Meantime, the Ayatollah has continued to put out defiant statements, reiterating that he will never give up his nuclear ambitions, and that could potentially be strike 3.
Well, and now it's looking more and more likely each day that there is going to be a military response. Is that correct?
Right. Over the last 36 hours, we've seen arguably the largest military buildup in the Middle East in decades. Hundreds of cargo flights have transported weapon systems to the region, as hundreds more fighter jets, dozens of warships, and multiple aircraft carrier groups have also made their way towards Iran. Now, it is always possible this is a negotiating tactic from Trump to try and get concessions from the regime as these diplomatic talks continue. But numerous advisors to the president, including his former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said they do not think it's a bluff.
And I can't imagine this much buildup of military power in the region without President Trump actually taking action that leads to an outcome that he's been seeking for an awfully long time.
Now, zooming out here, President Trump does reportedly feel emboldened by the immense success of his bombing raid on their nuclear facilities back in June, and of course the operation to grab Nicolas Maduro back in January. As one former U.S. diplomat put it to the Wall Street Journal, Trump is now offering to Iran, quote, a similar offer to Venezuela, surrender and we won't attack you. For her part, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt had this to say on Wednesday.
Well, there's many reasons and arguments that one could make for a strike against Iran. Diplomacy is always his first option, and Iran would be very wise to make a deal with President Trump.
And how is the Iranian regime responding to that pressure?
Yeah, as we've come to expect, they have continued to strike a very defiant tone. One top general said the U.S. is, quote, incapable of doing a damn thing, while the Ayatollah himself gave a speech vowing to sink our aircraft carriers.
They keep saying we have sent warships toward Iran. Okay, of course, a warship is a dangerous device, but more dangerous than that is a weapon that can send that warship deep under the sea.
The Ayatollah went on to taunt President Trump on social media, saying, quote, the American president said that for 47 years, America has failed to destroy the Islamic Republic. That is an admission that speaks volumes. As for me, I say you won't be able to do it either. For more context on the Iranian strategy, we spoke with Behnam Bentaleblu, the Iran Program's Senior Director at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies.
Diplomatically, the Islamic Republic is still playing the same game. Structurally, it's playing for time. In the short term, it wants to try to thwart or deter or impede a military attack. In the medium term, it's trying to dishearten Iranian protesters and prove that Uncle Sam is more interested in talking to the regime, which has killed people, rather than in standing with the Iranian people in practice and in a more meaningful way. And then lastly, in the long term, if it can, to try to get some kind of foreign financial stabilization and sanctions relief.
But despite their posturing, the Iranians, as you can imagine, are reportedly still fearful of their ability to actually withstand a prolonged assault. Satellite images show that they've constructed new concrete barriers over sensitive military and nuclear facilities in preparation for an attack. And in addition, the nation's top generals have reportedly been placed on high alert and given orders to take precautions that would prevent a strike from simultaneously taking out all of their leadership team.
Well, as we saw with Operation Midnight Hammer last summer, it'll take more than concrete slabs to stop a U.S. military attack.
That's for sure.
Cabot, thanks for reporting.
Absolutely.
No, it's not your imagination. Risk and regulation are ramping up, and customers now expect tangible proof of security just to do business with you. That's why our sponsor, Vanta, is a game changer. Vanta automates your compliance process and brings compliance, risk, and customer trust together on one AI-powered platform. So whether you're just starting out and prepping for your first SOC 2 audit, or you're running a full enterprise GRC program with multiple frameworks, Vanta keeps you secure and keeps your deals moving forward. The platform handles the heavy lifting, continuous monitoring, evidence collection, all the tedious stuff that usually eats up your team's time. Companies like Ramp and Ryder spend 82% less time on audits with Vanta, which means more time to focus on what really matters: growing your business, shipping features, and delighting customers. Instead of scrambling to gather evidence or wondering if you're actually compliant, you get real-time visibility into your security posture and a clear path to staying audit-ready year-round. Why wait? Get started at vanta.com/morningwire. That's vanta.com/morningwire.
A new investigation found that Washington state spent millions on the services of a gender transition surgeon who performed surgeries on prison inmates.
Daily Wire investigative reporter Meg Brock is here to talk about what she's uncovered. Great to have you back on the show, Meg.
Hey, John, thanks for having me.
So what have you learned about what's happening in Washington state?
Yeah, Washington state sent millions of dollars for the services of a very controversial transgender surgeon. Washington State Healthcare Authority has paid more than $4.3 million since July 2019 for the services of Dr. Jeffrey Stiller. Dr. Stiller is a prolific transgender surgeon, and according to his website, he's performed over 1,000 vaginoplasties, averaging 5 procedures per week, making him what he calls an extremely sought-after transgender surgeon. And importantly for this investigation, public records obtained by the Daily Wire show that Dr. Stiller's clientele included a flow of inmates from the Washington Department of Corrections facilities.
Now, in your report, you highlight how this surgeon was given a national spotlight for bringing genital surgery to small-town America, correct?
Yes, that's right. In 2017, Stiller brought vaginoplasty and genital surgery to a small town in Idaho. Now, this was very controversial. There was a lot of public outrage, and the Washington Post actually profiled him as a compassionate surgeon who was bringing quote-unquote medically necessary care to an underserved population. After experiencing backlash in Idaho, Dr. Stiller opened a practice in Spokane, Washington. Even in Washington, controversy continued to follow him. There is a record of a 2021 drunk driving arrest and multiple malpractice lawsuits over the past 5 years. I reached out to Dr. Stiller for comment on these controversies, but I did not receive a response. Records obtained by the Daily Wire show that while getting these procedures might be somewhat easy for inmates, they can have complications that are difficult to deal with. One email showed a patient was struggling with self-image after receiving a quote-unquote non-binary mastectomy. Medical staff described the patient who was, quote, identifying themselves as non-binary and asexual, and though they did not want to maintain breasts, they also report they did not want a male chest either. In particular, they are not happy with the nipple placement and would have liked them placed more central, the email stated. Another email showed a staff member requesting that an inmate had a single cell for a year after their genital surgery so they could dilate themselves in privacy. It's unclear if either of these patients were Dr. Stiller's, but it is clear that these surgeries can have very long, unintended negative consequences. The Trump administration has halted the federal funding of transgender surgeries through an executive order. However, that order is currently being challenged in court.
Well, as you've shown, just in this one state, millions of dollars being funneled to these surgeries. Meg, thank you so much for reporting.
Thank you.
Moderna is feeling some whiplash after the FDA reversed its decision to not review the company's new flu vaccine.
Daily Wire reporter Tim Pierce is here to talk about the latest in the Trump administration's effort to make America healthy again. So, Tim, first, what's going on with Moderna?
Yeah, the Food and Drug Administration has decided it will allow Moderna to move forward with its new mRNA flu vaccine. The agency had blocked it last week, much to Moderna's surprise, but allowed it to move forward again after the pharma company agreed to additional testing. What will happen now is the FDA will review Moderna's application for the vaccine, which Moderna wants to bring to market later this year for the 2026-2027 flu season. But now the vaccine is expected to be brought to market in two phases. The first for people 65 and older through a process of accelerated approval, which will allow it to move forward with limited evidence. The vaccine for that cohort can later get full approval with more tests, and after those are completed, the vaccine will be released for adults ages 50 to 64 as well, assuming the results of those tests come back positive. From the FDA's perspective, this was all about testing to begin with. The head of vaccines for the FDA, Vinay Prasad, initially blocked Moderna's application for review because he said Moderna's clinical trials had not compared its vaccine to the best flu shot available on the market. And this kind of back and forth seems to be the new normal under the FDA under Dr. Marty Makary, who has been saying for months now that the era of rubber stamping vaccines for pharma companies is now over.
Well, and that sounds like it's in line with RFK's skepticism towards vaccines, which, of course, the media has made a lot of hay out of. Speaking of RFK, he's now doing a media blitz with ads warning about the dangers of ultra-processed foods. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, ultra-processed foods have become standard in the American diet in recent decades, and they make up a whole slew of normal grocery store items, such as soft drinks and packaged snacks, to most cereals and deli meats. RFK has called them poison. Here he was on 60 Minutes.
70% of Americans are either obese or overweight. And it's not because they got indolent or because we became lazy or because we suddenly developed giant appetites. It's because we're being given food that is low in nutrition and high in calories, and it's destroying our health.
Now, RFK isn't trying to ban ultra-processed foods per se, but he does want Americans to be much better informed about the health consequences of what has become standard in so many people's diets.
Well, and tell us about the celebrities that he's teaming up with for this campaign.
Right. Boxing legend Mike Tyson joined RFK this month in the health secretary's Eat Real Food campaign.
This is the biggest fight of my life. I want to be a hero in this particular field because it affects my life. Every time I see someone who may be obese, I have an affinity for them. I want to be close to them. I want to talk to them. I want to let them know that I'm their friend.
And Kennedy also released an ad with Kid Rock pushing a healthy lifestyle that includes things like working out and cold plunges in addition to eating healthy. So that's where RFK's MAHA agenda stands right now. But before I go, there is one more piece of health news that I should mention, and that is that Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, currently the head of the National Institutes of Health, will take over the CDC as acting director.
Well, some people will remember Jay Bhattacharya was a real hero during COVID. Tim, thanks for reporting.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for waking up with us. And if you're listening to the show, you can now watch the show free on Daily Wire Plus. We'll be back this evening with more news you need to know.